On April 20th, 2017, just a few weeks before graduation, seniors Dylan Strong, Logan Heisz, and Aaron Akers crossed paths with Austin McDonald on East Highway 32, changing their lives forever. For taking immediate action to save the life of a motorcyclist with devastating injuries, Dylan Strong, Logan Heisz, and Aaron Akers are our 2018 Lifesaver Hometown Heroes. It was getting dark as the friends loaded into their trucks and headed into town on East Highway 32. Logan, driving the first truck, passed through the S-curve when he noticed a motorcycle stopped at a crossroad at the top of the hill.
And we're heading back to town and just driving back to town pretty much. And yeah, it happened top of the hill and happened faster than I could do anything.
Logan was in the truck in front of us, and I was riding in Aaron Akers' truck, and we're coming out of the S-turn, came over the hill, was coming back down the hill, and then as soon as Logan met the top of the hill, we saw him swerve a little bit, and by the time we made it to the top of the hill, we thought it was a deer or something like that, but then the helmet showed up, and so we just hit the ditch.
As I came up on it, Austin was in the middle of the road, and I swerved to miss him and drove my truck off into the ditch. But before I stopped, Dylan had jumped out of my truck to go run and get Austin out in the middle of the road.
None of the boys had any training for what they were about to experience.
Saw he was pretty bad, so I drug him out of the road, saw the trail of blood that followed him, and knew it wasn't good. And by that time, Logan was already over there, and so he got him laid down a little bit comforted, and I tried to find where the blood was coming from, and that's when Aaron called the ambulance.
We were sitting there with him, and he kept on telling Dylan and I not to go anywhere during the whole thing, and not to leave him. But we had no clue what we were doing, but we weren't leaving.
And Dylan worked to find why there was so much blood.
I just saw the trail of blood that followed him when I drug him off, and figured out, or you could see the blood coming through the crotch area of the jeans. So took the knife, cut a pretty good chunk of the jeans out, and then took my shirt off and held where the blood was coming from.
When rural fire department responders arrived at the scene, they assessed Austin's injuries, called for an airlift, and began preparing him for evacuation. As Austin and his parents reflect on the accident, his injuries, and the long recovery, they are forever grateful to Dylan, Logan, and Aaron.
Generally, the injuries that Austin received, the major one was his pelvis. So it basically split him open from the front to the back, down his pelvic area, and then fractured his pelvis both from the sides and then from the back too. So he had some very extensive pelvic injuries. Yeah, Austin lost a lot of blood on the scene that night. Total over, I guess it's probably about 2.5 days, they'd given him, if I remember my numbers right, about 17 units of blood and 12 of plasma. So it's a very significant amount of blood compared to what we normally carry around. For them to react the way they did, to get him pulled off the road so he didn't get run over by another vehicle going by, the fact they were able to keep pressure on his wounds enough to keep him from literally bleeding out on that scene. When you're trained to do that, it's just kind of an automatic thing. But to be thrown into that kind of a situation when maybe the worst you've ever seen is something on TV like that, what they did is just amazing. So the fact these boys are able to do that and do what they did and basically save my son's life, I mean, that's a debt to them that I'll never be able to pay.
Was still doing all these other surgeries and getting rid of the infection. They wanted to make sure that he could get up. That was a big thing for him to have physical therapy. And so they started that in Columbia. He could barely even lift up his head, let alone anything else. And eventually, you know, just day after day encouraging him to do that. But he had the will and the power of wanting to do it. You know, he knew he wanted to do that, and he did. And we were finally, it took about a good hour of being able to get him to sit up, and was able to get him on a board. It's called a transferred board, into a wheelchair. And that was the first time he was able to sit up. And just he was like, I did it, you know, and it just, I knew then that he was, other times I knew he was going to make it, but I never realized how strong he was. You know, he's really strong, and he had the drive to do it.
I think we went and visited him, I think it was 4 or 5 different times that we actually went up and visited him.
After seeing him that night on the side of the road, and then the last time we seen him, made me feel a lot better about the situation.
The first time I remember was probably 3 weeks into it. I just got out of ICU, and I was on the 7th floor, and they came and surprised me, which was awesome. I was so happy. I wanted to meet them so bad. I was telling everyone how much I wanted to meet them. You know, of course you want to meet the guys that saved you.
Looking back, Dylan and Logan can't explain the life-saving actions they took that night.
None of us had any medical experience at all whatsoever, and honestly I think it was just God working through our hands that night.
Not only are they the hometown hero, but they are personally my heroes, because without them, there's no way I would have made it off that road. I wouldn't be sitting here. I wouldn't be seeing my friends or my family anymore. You know, I would have gone out, and I didn't even see my parents that day, you know? I don't know, it could have been a lot worse, and they are truly my heroes. I look up to them, and those boys are younger than me, you know? I'm older, usually that you look up to someone older, but I look up to them. Without them, you know, I mean, yeah, you know, the prayers and the doctors and everything had to play, but they had the first play, and they did it perfectly.
For taking immediate action to save the life of a motorcyclist with devastating injuries, Dylan Strong, Logan Heisz, and Aaron Akers are our 2018 Lifesaver Hometown Heroes.